Yesterday, we discussed how The Guardian and The Washington Post won the Pulitzer Prize for their great work with Edward Snowden to leak the illegal and unconstitutional activities of the NSA. Well, not everybody is as happy about that as we are. Perennial moron Representative Peter King took to Twitter and said, quote, "Awarding the Pulitzer to Snowden enablers is a disgrace." Yeah. If you follow me on Twitter, you saw I responded to this earlier. I've been doing a lot of that recently on Twitter. I love how I think that's actually accomplishing something. Like, I reach out to lawmakers, and I'm like, "You suck, man!" As if they're reading it like, "Oh, Kyle from SecularTalk disagrees. Well, we better change this." Of course they don't give a shit. But, I mean, that guy really is a fucking idiot. Look, I'm going to do this one more time on air for the sake of clarity. Peter King and other anti-Snowden fools need to read the Fourth Amendment before they run their mouths. Quote, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly," keyword, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So when Edward Snowden released information to the media that said, "Hey guys, there's one broad warrant for this vague thing called terrorism that applies to over 300 million Americans." Let me ask you a question. Is there any evidence that 300 million Americans are engaged in terrorism? Fuck you if you say there are. Of course not. I have nothing to do with terrorism. You guys listening have nothing to do with terrorism. Grandma Betsy down the road has nothing to do with terrorism. She just cooks cherry pies all day and reads sex novels. For fuck's sake, this crazy idea that we're all guilty. This crazy idea that you could collect all of our information because, hey, you might be working with Al-Qaeda. No, the way it's supposed to work, and the American way, is, oh, we have evidence that this guy might be part of some sort of plot. Okay, great. You present that evidence to a judge. The judge goes, okay, go ahead. You have the right to tap his phone, to search his house, to do whatever the fuck you got to do. The system that we had beforehand was perfect to deal with crime and also protect your civil rights. What we have now is the opposite. There is no civil rights. They've thrown out the idea of specific warrants, and they've hidden behind the Patriot Act. And we've talked about this before, too. The guy who fucking wrote that provision of the Patriot Act that they always cite as the reason why they're allowed to collect all this information, your phone calls, your emails, your entire electronic footprint. They say, oh, it's Section 215 of the Patriot Act. That allows us to do this. Meanwhile, the fucking author of Section 215 of the Patriot Act, Representative Sensenbrenner, is screaming from the mountaintops, whoa, that's not why I wrote that. What are you doing? You're using my provision, which doesn't mean what you think it means, to justify collecting all this information? You're just wrong. You're wrong. You're acting illegally. That's not what that's for. Did you know that in the early 2000s, after 9/11, when the Patriot Act was first passed, there was a debate and there were court cases as to whether or not Section 215 was a broad enough provision to allow the government to look at your library records? Now library records, they laugh at that. They do that before breakfast on a Tuesday. They'll look through your library records. They use that provision to justify looking at your text messages, your emails, your phone calls, your records, everything you've ever done online. It's an alphabet soup of programs. The X-Keyscore program, the Blarney program, the PRISM program. I mean, you name it. These are all different programs that collect all your shit. But no, they're all constitutional. Peter King is to tell me. No, see, the thing about Peter King that's beyond annoying is the fact that he's so arrogant in his wrongness. He's like, well, we got to protect the nation. That's why we don't like Snowden. That's why we don't like Glenn Greenwald and the Washington Post. But there's no evidence that this fucking ridiculous program prevented any terrorist attacks. There was a great breakdown that we spoke about on air. Originally, the NSA claimed, oh, yes, we stopped about 50 terrorist attacks from this. Soon as reporters looked into it and went to each individual thing and broke it down, it turns out that none of them were true. That this NSA data collection program stopped 0 terrorist attacks. So they collect all your information that's not even effective in preventing terrorism. So it's unconstitutional, it violates your right, and there's no upside because it's not actually preventing anything bad from happening. And Peter King is still out there slamming Snowden. Fuck, man. Snowden deserves the highest awards and accolades. He deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. He's a constitutional hero, and these guys might not realize it now, but the people at Pulitzer realize it, and everybody with the fucking brain realizes it.